Hey, good morning. Well, it will be morning. Good morning, my neighbors. I'm getting this in a little early. Gonna run some errands tomorrow, so making sure that y'all have what y'all need for tomorrow. But welcome to another episode of BYTTT. Before you take the trade, I am your host JD. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button. That way, they can work all that YouTube algorithm thingy that they like to do and all that good stuff. That would be greatly appreciated because that's what powers this whole entire thing. Shout out to all my subscribers currently. So, since we got a lot of work to do, we're going to go right to it. So, let's get to the charts. So, the first thing I want to kind of bring up is the fact that NQ is kind of following that arc I was saying, right? We kind of been drifting up. It's been battling to figure out if it wants to continue to that upper register, but this was the drawing that I did earlier on last week Friday, I think I did, maybe even Thursday. And we got this nice little rounded move right here. So let me go ahead and unlock that one. I'm gonna just extend it out a little bit, get that top, and then just lock it back. And you can kind of see we're just arcing ourselves right here. And there's a possibility it's gonna go continue right through. We got some earnings, and we also got Fed interest rates. This is not a end all be all. Do not send me a message saying, JD, you said the market's coming down, and then it pops right back up, and you're like, it's my fault. I'm not gonna say that. I'm just saying this is what I'm looking for a possible peak, especially that we just made a higher high right here, but it is just drifting, kind of doing that wedge action. So we'll see how that goes. Let's go ahead and keep this going. We got oil. Oil had a nice little pop, looking like a W, like it wants to go ahead and get into this area. I do think that oil inventory is going to tell us a lot. It's going to be a make or break, and that make or break will then determine, are they going to go ahead and relatively take this upside serious. Personally, I think there's way too much competition, and this thing is going to go ahead and come back down. But who am I to disagree with what's going on with the market? Nice little curl up right here, and then you got the MACD that's curling up right here. So this is very, very solid for an upside, especially when we get into this area here. Let me get rid of this trend line. Don't need that anymore. But you can kind of see we got two candles of power to that upside. Look for a possible rejection at that area. Next we have is gold, and gold went ahead and just kind of like figured out something very interesting about itself. It doesn't know if it wants to go up. I think they're hitting the brakes here because they know they're going to go ahead and put some pressure on those bears. So look for this kind of like a reversal. We're still on the bullish side of the MACD, so this thing can catch some momentum and continue up. So do not try to just short gold at this point. I would love for you to kind of keep on playing the range until it gets tight enough. Here's silver. Silver is also showing a possibility of reversal, but when we get a double doji, I kind of question it because the first doji is the reversal and the second doji is like out of control. Maybe they just go ahead and push it right back down. But anyways, we're probably going to go ahead and test this fair value gap and push into it. I do want to see silver get to $40. Here's the British pound. The British pound is playing that head and shoulder the way I thought it was going to. The only problem is, based on this relative parameter, you can kind of see we put in a doji. Can they reverse this and push the market right back up? If this pushes and they start to invalidate this head and shoulder, you're going to get a massive drop on the US dollar, making market rally. Here is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is breaking down again. We were at 19,000 just a day ago, and right now we're starting to push right back down to the downside. Let's see if we can get Bitcoin back into that 115 again. We had a one touch and bounced right out of it. I would love to see if they're going to do a two touch. A nice higher low would be great, and then that should get us into that 125 as the bears don't want to sell against that pressure. Here's the Russell. The Russell is struggling to actually get into the area that it wants to get into, so that way it can be able to really push to that upside. But you can kind of see that this order block is putting a major move to it. Nice low strong rejection over here. looking for it to kind of come down, maybe even touch the 50 EMA. So we'll see, because this is now a 2-candle microtrend. And finally is the infamous, undeniable thing that is powering right back up into a W, dollar. We're not going to get a close above. That's what it looks like. But we got 2 hours until this candle closes. But if we get a nice little close above and then they go ahead and reopen, we're probably going to make that push to that upside that I think that the dollar can do. If that's the case, then we're probably going to get a follow through. And a measure move for this will bring dollar to probably like about 100.5. 100.5 or something a lot lower. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Go ahead and pull out a pen and a pad, because it's coming in hot. We're going to go ahead and give you the news. And I got quite a bit of stuff that I want to go ahead and cover. First thing we're going to go back into is the economic calendar. The economic calendar has a couple things that is going to stand out for tomorrow, of course. We got some Aussie information. We got some Aussie CPI data that's going to be coming in. That's going to go ahead and cause a little bit of volatility going into the Asian session. I would love to see how the market reacts to that. You're going to get some GDP growth rate, some inflation data and everything around Europe, especially over at the Euro, roughly around 5 a.m. But I think the real play is going to be around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So just keep that in mind. And then we got ourselves mortgage rates, refinancing, and all that information with ADP change. This is the one I'm really curious about, because this is going to go ahead and give us a preview into unemployment. And then we got ourselves GDP index. That's going to go ahead and let the Feds kind of understand what they're going to do with interest rates. But that said, we're going to get a lot of oil inventory and Fed interest rate decision. I think the market's going to be completely and utterly quiet, very muted. Not going to have a lot of action until 2 o'clock, 2:30. Everything's going to be relatively quiet, but I think this monster right here, as far as Fed interest rate and Fed press, these two is going to go ahead and bring in the true volatility and all that information we're going to love and know, so that we can really make some money in the market. So keep that in mind. All right, let's go ahead and pull up some of the news articles. I don't have too much for y'all. Let's go ahead and break these down. The first one is this. I don't know if y'all remember, I did a nice little video before about this, because they were speculating this in itself, and it looks like they're trying to really push Apple. So I'm going to put something like a video above here and try to make it make sense. They are talking about Apple. If Apple makes a foldable phone, analysts say the stock will benefit. Look, I'm not saying that they won't, and I won't say that they will, but I would say their version of their augmented reality is a little bit pricey for the common user. But generally speaking, this stock has been completely and utterly stagnant over here in the middle of 213, just completely. I would like for them to kind of like break that 213 and hold to kind of give me a little confidence. A foldable phone, I don't think it moves the needle that much, but I will say this, and I'm not an advocate for it, and I'm not a fan of anybody getting fired. If you replace a Tim Cook with a very pit bull type of person, like I don't know, if you could get a Ginseng Wong, like over in the video, over into there, and I'm not saying that the video CEO is going to leave, but if you could get somebody from his team to come over there, you're probably going to go ahead and see Apple get a nice little surge of investors believing in them to bring some innovation. And then where you can kind of see how that relatively worked out. But back to Apple. This is a very funny little situation for them. I don't care if you come out with a foldable phone. I don't even care if it comes out in September of 2026. I don't care what JP Morgan Chase says. The Apple, you look like crap as far as the way this stock looks. It's just the truth. Right now, it looks like they want to come down. We got earnings that's going to be coming out on the 31st. And I will not be surprised that they come back down to these levels and just drag Apple to the downside. It's been on a decline for a long period of time. This is going back from December of 2024. So we're talking about half a year, and you barely even scratched the surface of 50% of your previous high. So this is a major decline for a very, very good company. Yes, they probably still have their cash flow, the free cash flow, but generally speaking, this is not a good situation for Apple. So we'll see what happens there. Next one we're going to talk about is this crazy thing for me to read. I read the headline, as I said, I kind of put it to the sideline because I want to read the entire article. If you do not have Pro on CNBC, I do suggest that you get it. I use it because at the end of the day, I think they sell a lot of news to folks, and there's very little room for you to kind of position yourself. So I kind of do the opposite. So I'm looking at this as investors are using borrowed money to buy stocks at a pace last seen during market bubbles. I can't say that this is a fact or fiction, and I would love to know what statistical numbers that they pulled up in that regard, and I would love to cross-reference their information. So I find this as a complete sell. This is that BS. Because one, I think overall, or maybe some small time investors, if you have a margin account, technically you are borrowing money. That's how it kind of works. It's margins. But if we really look at this, no. Because a lot of people already know that credit card debt is its all-time high, especially after the pandemic. And then we can have an argument on how it's been influenced for us to be even in that credit card debt. But irregardless, I would look at this. Well, I won't say irregardless. Irregardless is probably a bad word. No matter the fact, I think that with investors borrowing money, they're not buying stocks for it. They're spending it on other things. They're probably using their cash flow for the stocks. But no, I don't think we have a market bubble per se. We might have a tech bubble. That's a possibility, especially as we're pouring into AI and there's so much AI adjacent stuff. And whoever's going to be the mainstay for AI is the one that's going to be the winner. And NVIDIA is going to just be the component side. And I think they're going to hold their weight, even though AMD is coming after this lunch. So just don't take this with a grain of salt. I don't think a bubble's going to burst because I think what they're trying to scare people is to start selling their stuff. And if they do, then they're going to go ahead and buy the dip. It's what it smells like. All right, let's go ahead and keep this going. Ethereum treasury companies are just getting started. Could own 10% of coin one day, says Standard Chartered. Now, I do agree in some regards of this. I found it interesting that Ethereum has not really broke out into any all-time highs, right? But Bitcoin has been doing something very ridiculous as far as its all-time high. To kind of put this in comparison, so we're going to go ahead and put this side by side. Let me go ahead and get a BTC. And we're going to go ahead and put this on new price scale. And you could kind of see the complete detachment starts around here. And it's like, wow, that is completely different because it looked like Ethereum kind of was a shallow drop. But Bitcoin had a deeper drop. And then we had a nice little spike. Ethereum was still stagnant. Then we had another spike. That's when it followed. And then now we got another one and another one. Kind of feel the divergence. It pulled back with them. But this ride is mostly Bitcoin versus them. So I think there was a little bit of suppression roughly around that 2000 mark in the middle of April 2025. That Bitcoin got most of the money, but not here. So I'm very curious on how the market reacts. We do have golden crosses here, so I do think that we're going to get some more upside out of Ethereum. So all right, so for the last article we're going to go ahead and bring up, it is this one. This one is about Netflix. Now the article speaks that Netflix is experiencing a surprising pullback in the S&P 500 while the S&P 500 hits records. How to trade it. Listen, this whole entire thing is not a surprise. If you've been watching my show, I've been giving you warnings. Now you know that this was going to go ahead and come down. So let's go ahead and look at it on the daily. So we got micro trends that's just beating up a major trend, right? Major trend is all the way back here, coming from even as far as 2022, even further to the pandemic. Everybody loves themselves some Netflix. That's just how it relatively works right now. But here's the question that you got to ask yourself. Well, if people are loving Netflix and everything else, then why is it pulling back? Again, nothing just goes in a straight line. If you think that, then I will sell you a camel in the middle of the desert. It's just the silliest thing in the world for you to think that we're just gonna go straight up, right? But here's the funny thing about it. Is it 1157? That's our base. We're very close to it. There's a possibility we could get that bounce. But what I don't like is Netflix is experiencing a surprising pullback. I feel like this is a little bit of a warning sign to kind of get people to start buying. And this is not over yet. Nothing's telling me that it's ready to bounce up. Yes, they are in line on their earnings. Yes, they guided relatively well onto their next earnings. So there is some value to this. But let's go ahead and look at this weekly. Does this weekly look like something that's ready to reverse? No, not at all. Right now, we got to figure out, is this base strong enough to scare them off so that we can go ahead and flip to that upside? We don't have major imbalances over here except a few gaps. That's it. But after that, Netflix could really just keep on pushing down. I think it could get down to 1,000. Very much so. Just to kind of squeeze people completely out. So just keep in mind that if the levels are respected, play it. If it's not being respected, wait. If you want to wait for the upside. But for the most part, Netflix is not a surprise on this upside. And it's not going to go ahead and go to the OTC. Anyways, let's go ahead and keep this going. We got a lot of stuff that I want to cover. And I just want to make sure that y'all have all the information so you can be completely sound. So let's get into some of the earnings that's coming up. The first one is early in the morning. You're going to have Mo, which is Altria. This one is going to be your tobacco company. Again, they pay solid dividends, so you may want to consider it. But again, if you want to promote the destruction of lungs, right? Their earnings is anticipated at 1.3 on the EPS with a $5 billion revenue stream, which is up from here. And they're going to pay dividends in that middle of the month or the middle of the quarter as it's going as well. So this is going to be fun to kind of see how that pans out. ADP. ADP is a very strong company. I think they're going to be solid because they lead in their space. So we're going to see if they can go ahead and smash this EPS of 2.23 with $5 billion in revenue. Last quarter, this is what they did. 3 on the EPS, slightly a surprise, and they found an extra $61 million for revenue. Gotta love companies like that. Dividends is not the greatest. It's only half of it, or half of 1% per quarter. But hey, at the end of the day, dividends is dividends. So enjoy. Next one is Carvana, CVNA. As soon as I can type, CVNA. There we go. CVNA, I think there's going to be more of a pullback. I don't know if it's going to be like Spotify, but I find this valuation relatively questionable. A nice surprise. I think it's frothy as hell. I think 283 is probably going to be where they're going to be going, especially how this weekly is. But the daily kind of looks like this, like it's going to scoop right back up into like what could be a bull flag to a certain degree. But it would be this entire leg you're considering and then break out, not the fact that it already had a nice little retracement in between. Later on, you're going to also have is Meta. This is what I am looking for. I still have my small little tiny smidge of a position, and it hit the brakes right at 700 and then bounced to 704. Now, here's the fun thing about it. I wanted to hold 700. I have a stop loss that I think is relatively modest, but I need you to break out. You went ahead and spiked through to make some highs here in June. I need you to go ahead and at least test that. I think next month is going to be when they make that test, because they've been really trying to get this bearish divergence to pan out, which they already got this part to this part. Bing. They didn't have a real follow through, so I'm assuming that the 700 is the level that they want to hold. Next one is MSFT, which is Microsoft. Now, Microsoft has been drifting. I want to straddle this, and that's for tomorrow. But I think as soon as the market closes, I might consider it. I want to straddle this because I think there's going to be a plus minus of about a few dollars that I can take advantage of, and I'm probably going to hold on to it. And the last one is QCOM. Part of the semiconductors. It's been trying to make some higher highs here. Probably take out this fair value gap. A good trade would be probably trying to take out the whole entire fair value gap and get into 172. But right now, I think it's a little tired, especially with the Stoke being here. But if we go over to the weekly, it's crossing right back up as the MACD is trying to go through the Z line. Is that our catalyst to go ahead and push up? Very possible. Very possible. All right. So for the next day on Thursday, we're going to have a few interesting ones. Let's talk about PCG. The only reason I put this on here is because they are a terrible company. I just want to see their own demise and destruction. And let's see how this is looking. Ugh, look at that. Why? That is crazy. Oh, we might finish with a doji on the month though. So that's going to make things interesting. Death Cross here kind of was pushing back up, but they noticed that there's a bunch of junk over there. Earnings is 31 cents. Ugh. Dividends is 2 cents. Ugh, that is just terrible. But again, I think they are poorly ran. Probably needs to be disbanded. Even though this has a bullish divergence, it might be a pullback just to short it again. Let's go to CVS. That's also going to be in the morning of Thursday. Doing a lot better than Walgreens for the most part. And this is WBA, Walgreens Boots Alliance. $11. Oh, that ticker has just been destroyed. Probably the memes got to it. But you can kind of see, kind of like a double top, probably coming back down. So I'm curious on this earnings. $94 billion in revenue. And their dividends that they pay out is 66 cents. Not too bad. Not too bad. But again, this space is kind of falling into that specialty realty space. Not realty. Retail space. So this can really continue to the downside. Don't do anything reckless. In the morning, you're also going to get Roblox. Roblox has been on a tear. I think this earnings cycle is going to tell us about it. If this is a positive EPS, I think they're going to smash that 140, going to get to 150. That's it. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. There's nothing more to say about Roblox. That's what I'm looking for. In the afternoon, evening, we're going to be dealing with Coinbase. I think they're going to have a nice little surprise to that, especially with their assets that they have under management with Bitcoin allocations. I wonder, did they shave some of the profits to lock in that regard? That's what's probably going to be part of the call. So look for Coinbase to really hold that $400 level. I think that is their true base. They're just down here for a vacation before they really own that $400 level. Last is Amazon. I'm going to be very curious on how Amazon pans out. Because the thing with Amazon is that I felt like at 200 to 215, it should have been held its level. But unfortunately, it was just stagnant and very choppy. Unless you had a lot of time in your contract, this was an annoying hold. So it didn't really hit the target I was looking for from a percentage standpoint, but it did hit the target I was looking for from a price action standpoint. So very interested on what goes on from there. Okay, now that we're done with the whole entire earnings cycle, let's go ahead and get into Shopify. Shopify is currently trying to find its way along its lines. I think this thing is probably leaning on the laggard side because I think a lot of things that's been moving in tech and it's been moving and Shopify hasn't really moved. Not saying it hasn't been on the upside because we could kind of see it's been curling up over here since 2023. If we go over to the daily, this is what I'm kind of talking about. It was pushing up. We got to like the February 25th clear, but I don't think we really are up in an area that I think Shopify is going to go ahead and kind of like reverse back down to the downside. I think they're sitting on very key support. So I don't think you're going to see any more $100 Shopifys anymore. So looking at this, even though they do return money to shareholders, they miss their earnings, but they're $2 billion in revenue. Same over here. So I'm looking to see what their earnings in the first week of August is going to look like, because if they smash the earnings and stayed in line for the past two, then this could be a nice little price in to see Shopify move up to the upside. There's a lot that I like out of this one, because ever since the April run up, this is our angle. Let's go ahead and mark off our deviations. Oops. Let's get that over a little bit. All right, and then let's get our deviations. That one there, that one there. And you could kind of see on this chart the way everything is kind of lining up. It just looks like we are in a really, really good uptrend, and it's pretty strong. So if we could see Shopify hold its position over here, we're probably going to put some pressure on that high because we already tested it once. And I'm thinking that this whole entire move, I think this was a inverse head and shoulder or a W, something that I kind of drew out here. But there was a reason I left a marker over here, but I want to see it get to like break through that 129 in itself. Actually, there probably was a head and shoulder. Let me see, probably that. Yeah, that was it. It was either from here to here or here to here. So we already at the 50% mark of that head and shoulder type of move that happened back here in May. So I must have been looking at this in the middle of June going into July. That would have been a really, really good play. But anyways, I did not play that one in this regard. But we could get a nice little topping action here that's going to go ahead and fail when it touches this trend line, and we get the rest of that measured move. And then another one that's in my list, it is Disney. Now Disney is, I want to say it's in a weird spot. I won't say it's in a troubled spot because I don't want to say that Disney is in trouble, but I want to say it's probably in a very weird spot because I think Disney wants to push up. I really do. But this W has been struggling. This is the one I've been really eyeballing. But if this W can play out, we're talking about getting back into the 160s relatively easy because we want to take the short side of this W. Let me go get my tool. That will bring us here to about right here. And then we're going to go ahead and extend from right here. So you're talking about getting close to that 160, maybe even get into this gap at 170. Is what you could get out of a Disney. Their dividends is 50 cents, which is completely compared to some of the other things. But you could see nice earnings. Again, it's a $23 billion company. They're not going to go nowhere anytime soon. A lot of the reason why they're here at this point because of their Disney Plus, it kind of struggled, and their shares floated is affecting their real impact. A lot of people don't just park their money in Disney, especially a couple of the political positions that they held. So just look for Disney to finally kind of hold its own and kind of push back up to that upside. All right. And then a couple of things that I'm going to be recapping on is, remember last month we kind of talked about Costco and how Costco was not going to hold its $1,000 mark. I'm going to be looking at some tickers in the tech sector and looking for almost the same type of patterns or same type of action that's probably going to be panning out. Costco does pay dividends. It's $1.30, but again, based on the parameters of how much expensive this ticker is, you're not going there for the dividends. You're going for the fact that it's going to be a safe space for you to go ahead and plug your money and park it for a little bit. Looks like our 15 minutes, we're going to be coming down a little bit. All right, but you can kind of see Death Cross is coming. I don't think the Death Cross is going to go too far. But that's my 800, which is that yellow line, and it's been a while. It's been since January 2023 since they touched my 800. So I would love for them to tap the 800, 806 to maybe 840, somewhere around that ballpark, maybe even 850 probably. I don't think we're gonna really get through the 870, but if we did, that's where the 850 comes into play. So kind of look for 870, 850, 840, somewhere around there. I don't think we're going to get to 800. If we do, that's going to be a violent bounce. So just kind of keep that one in mind. And then the last one for today is AVGO. Now, if you don't know this ticker, then you haven't really charted all the semiconductors. I think this one's the better performing semiconductor space. They're the ones that do the modems inside of your phones, your cell phones, right? Nice uptrend. I think it's a little tired for the most part, but again, we're gonna just draw a trend line. This is our peak right here that created that uptrend, and now they're trying to see if they can hold that up. You can kind of see bearish divergences all over. They're holding tech up. And we do need a nice little drop down so we can bounce it right back up. So just look for something along the lines of that. Dividends only 59 cents, kind of similar to how Costco is, but again, you're mostly getting in for the fact that this is a good company versus going for the dividends. All right. So that said, I want to say thank you very much for participating with BYTTT before you take the trade. Hopefully you can get yourself in the right position and be able to conquer the market this morning. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button. One-on-ones, we got only 2 more days left on one-on-ones. I look forward to working with y'all. So go ahead and book if you have not. Also, charts are available. If you need something with a trading plan and everything else and you don't know how to build a strategy, it is $50 off. Go ahead and check it out. Get your purchase in. And that's that. Don't forget to like and subscribe and the bell button. That's how it works. So that way I can keep on doing these videos. Thank you for taking the time and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.